这个故事如果你听起来不累，那么你的听力水平在生活中是完全够用的。要持续提升英文，记得点击订阅按钮。我们开始吧。
A wooden fence once cut a land in two, and a few brave steps past it could change a life. The road was wet with morning fog when young Thomas left the stone gate of Dublin. He carried a small sack with bread, a knife, and a piece of cheese wrapped in cloth. The guards at the gate did not stop him. Many boys left the city like this. Few spoke about where they went. Outside the city stood a long line of earth and wood. It was not a grand wall like the ones in old tales. It was rough. Mud, sharp posts, and broken brush packed tight together. People called it the Pale. Inside the Pale lived farmers, traders, and soldiers who followed the rule of the English crown. Streets had markets, bells rang on Sundays, and wooden houses stood close together. Life was hard, yet it had rules. People knew who watched the roads and who kept the peace. Beyond that fence the land changed fast. Green hills rolled out wide and wild. Old woods stood dark and deep. Small clans lived there, moving with the seasons, guarding their cattle and their land. Some traded with the towns. Some fought them. Stories about the land beyond the Pale filled taverns at night. Thomas had heard those stories since he was small. Men spoke in low voices near the fire. They said a man who walked beyond the Pale might come back rich, or not come back at all. They said the laws of the city stopped at the fence. After that, only courage and luck could help you. Thomas reached the line before noon. The fence did not look as tall as he had thought. A crow sat on one of the posts and cried into the gray sky. The boy stood still for a long moment. Behind him lay safe streets and a small room above his mother's shop. Ahead lay wind, hills, and a life no one could promise. A cart rolled up behind him. An old driver with a red scarf looked down from the seat. "Going out, boy?" Thomas nodded. The driver studied him for a moment. "Most people stay on this side. Out there, the rules change. Once you cross, you are beyond the Pale." The words hung in the air like cold smoke. Thomas climbed the fence. The ground on the other side felt the same under his boots. Yet it also felt different. The road grew thin. The sound of the city faded behind him. Wind moved through tall grass like quiet waves. He walked for hours. Near dusk he saw smoke rising from a hill. A small camp stood there. 3 men sat by a fire, turning meat over hot stones. Their cloaks were rough wool, their hair long and loose in the wind. One of them stood. "You crossed the fence," the man said slowly. Thomas felt his hands shake, but he kept his voice steady. "I came to work." The men looked at one another. Then one laughed. loud and bright. Work we have. Food too. But you must be strong, city boy. Thomas stayed. Days turned into weeks. He learned to ride a small horse across wet fields. He learned to watch the sky for storms and the hills for strangers. At night he heard songs in a language he did not know. The fire burned bright while stories moved through the dark like sparks. Then came the night riders. Hoofbeats thundered through the valley. Torches flashed like angry stars. A group from another clan had come to take cattle. Thomas saw fear flash across the camp. This was not a tavern tale now. The leader threw Thomas a spear. Stand if you stay with us. The boy felt the weight of the wood and iron. His heart beat hard enough to shake his chest. The fence in Dublin felt very far away. The riders rushed down the hill. Shouts tore through the night. Horses kicked dirt into the firelight. Thomas gripped the spear and held his ground. One rider came close, swinging a long stick. Thomas stepped aside and pushed with all his strength. The rider fell. The fight ended as fast as it began. Hoofbeats faded into the dark again. The camp stood silent except for heavy breathing and the low cry of cattle. The leader looked at Thomas with new eyes. "You crossed the pale," he said softly. "Now the land knows you." Years later, travelers carried stories back to the city. They spoke about a man who traded between the wild hills and the markets of Dublin. A man who could ride all day through rain and fog. A man who knew both sides of the fence. When people heard about strange acts or bold choices, they began to use the old words again. Someone who broke the rules, who stepped far past what others thought safe, was said to be beyond the pale. The phrase stayed alive long after the old fence fell into the earth. Wood rotted. Mud walls sank back into the ground. Roads grew wider. Towns spread into the hills that once seemed wild. Yet the words remained. Beyond the pale. Not just a place on a map anymore. A line people feel in their minds. Every life has a fence like that. A safe side where things are known. A job that pays the bills. A street you walk every day. People who expect you to stay the same. Then there is the other side. The step where your voice shakes a little. The moment you try something that might fail. The path no one around you has walked. Many people stand at the fence their whole lives. Some climb it. And once in a while, someone crosses it and finds a wider world waiting in the tall grass.
能以非母语者的身份专注学习到现在，这本身就是很棒的进步。真诚感谢你的观看。如果你觉得本期内容实用，点赞或留言让我知道你的想法，这对我持续创作非常重要。我们下期见。